Okay, everybody, sorry we're late. Good morning. Hello, everybody. I now call to order this special meeting of the Community and Economic Development Committee. Today is January 30th, 2025. We're on the record from 9 until 10. We could expand a little bit if we need, but not much. And it's now 9:04. We'll start with introductions.
Mark Littlefield.
Karen Bronga.
Scott Myers.
Christopher Constant.
Felix Rivera.
On the phone, we have Chair Martinez.
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Member Brawley.
Yep, I'm here.
All right. So the purpose of this meeting is to have further conversations about AR 2025-24 regarding Alaska Sense M10237 cultivation license renewal. It is also an opportunity to engage in some problem solving. Hopefully, we heard from council to the licensee that in the past we have engaged in this committee's work to help kind of work out some strategies for making things work better in the industry. And so that's part of the conversation. And we also have a draft new policy to share about interdepartmental coordination of marijuana odor monitoring investigations. And then the committee is ideally not going to take on the merits of any part of the conversation about the license renewal today. That's not the purpose. There has been a special meeting scheduled for March 7th, so it's a bit later than had previously been intended, which will likely be in this room here at that date and time when we will take up the license in earnest. And so we want to be careful not to step into the role of the assembly at this committee meeting. And so although committee can make recommendations, it's unlikely to be of too much value because we're going to have to go through that process as a body. So before we do that, first we'll start with any disclosures of ex parte contact because this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. And I will just get started. I have received a couple of emails and seen some emails, but have not been responding to anybody in relationship to this matter. So I don't believe I have any ex parte contacts to disclose. Anyone else wish to make a disclosure of any potential ex parte contact?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rivera.
Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Martinez, just a minute. Mr. Rivera.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So aside from the disclosure made at the last regular assembly meeting, I have also been included on a variety of emails regarding this item, as well as have had phone calls with the Midtown Community Council Chair, Chris Stoner, regarding this item. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Chair. I also have been a recipient on several emails to many folks, and then also directly to myself. I have forwarded all such emails regarding this matter to council and have not responded to any of them directly. So I don't think I have anything else to identify. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Did someone just jump on the phone?
Yes, it's Elaine with Code Enforcement.
Oh, thank you. Welcome. Okay, Mr. Gates, you were going to provide a little guidance before this meeting on our process.
Yes, sure. Thank you. I think that the important thing to recognize for today is that we have the county before us, but it's not the full body. And license renewals for municipal marijuana licenses are a decision for the full Anchorage Assembly, the 12-member body. And so today, of course, you can hear what you I guess presentation of things and evidence and arguments should be before the full body, and we've set that March 7th meeting for that purpose. And the decision is basically on renewal, which is our code section 108080, which lays out the reasons that a marijuana license could be denied. And there's sort of more global perspective. It's not deciding specific violations or instances. Looking at overall the operation, and that's listed in the resolution that we had distributed at the January meeting on page 3 at the bottom, section 3. It tracks that code section 108080B, starting at the bottom boxes to check. And those are all the reasons that the assembly as a body can deny a municipal marijuana license. And so that's not for today, but of course this county should be aware of that and that's coming down the road. So as a application for renewal approval, of course, the party is the licensee who applied, and they have a due process right to be heard on their license. So in general, we follow in the past a procedure where we have a public hearing component so that council members of the public can be heard, and when that's closed, then there's a staff report, of the license and whatever information has come from this clerk in the past. And then the licensee for their application to do presentation, and then the body could debate and deliberate, and they could call persons forward, ask questions at that point. That process is for March 7th meeting. And so, Mr. Chair, for today, the process, I guess you had explained that the licensee asked for this meeting from the county. And you can run that as you like, but everybody should be aware that today isn't the day to do all those things that I described. That's for the full body at March 7th meeting.
Thank you, sir. That is ample. And so again, just the caveat that today's proceedings are not to sort through the decision. It is to hear from the petitioner some ideas that this committee is really ideal place to have a less formal conversation about these matters. Also, we received, I'll go through the documents that we have before us here for the record, and we received communication from what I think I'll call, because of the way they describe themselves, corporate counsel for the petitioner as opposed to licensing counsel, which they can describe to us the difference. Corporate counsel submitted to us a record. We did not bring it here today. It's not for the purpose of discussion here today, but it will be introduced by AIM for the proceedings on the 7th. So all of those records will come forward into the proceeding. So members will see them in a timely manner. And I just want to note that in it, they called out the community council and Mr. Kenny Peterson by name. And so we've made the determination that since they will be named, they will also be given an opportunity to participate in the proceedings as we move forward on the 7th of March, because the petitioner has brought them into the record post public hearing. They will then have an opportunity to be heard. So we will get all of those records, and also the community council and the petitioner have sent some, or not the petitioner, the Mr. Peterson sent some communications that will also be brought in by AIM as we move towards the formal proceeding. And so with that said, we have a draft, not a draft, I guess the introduced AR 2025-24, which is the item that we will be addressing at the meeting of the 7th of March. We have AR 2025-12S, which was our conditional protest to the state for the same license. Then we have AR 2025-12, which was the original item. Then we have also draft marijuana odor investigation policy and interdepartmental coordination of marijuana odor monitoring and investigations. And then, as I spoke, we have 2 AIMs that are being generated that will be included in the packet for the regular meeting. So that is everything I think we need to do on an introductory basis. Any members have any questions before we invite the petitioner up and begin that part of the conversation? I don't see anyone. Anyone on the phone have questions? I'm hearing no one on the phone, so we'll go ahead and welcome the petitioner to the table. Good morning.
Good morning, Jana Wiltzine, one of the attorneys for Alaska Sense. Smotty Warden and Rachel Lawson. You can say wherever you want, Smotty. Yeah, that works. So, I mean, we've been doing a lot of communication with Kenny. Like Kenny, I feel like he can't even see. Would it be okay if he's like blocked? Anyways, I just feel bad saying somebody's name and they can't see the proceedings, but we're doing a lot of communication with Kenny, really working on this. We have Ron Thompson here, the civil engineer. I did bring plans of the design of the HVAC system. They tell us, and Ron can speak to this more, but they tell us they can have it installed and I'm hesitant to just ask for July 31st because I know how things go in Alaska, getting equipment here, getting permits pulled, getting everything. So I'm really hesitant to just ask for July 31st. I don't want to be too greedy and ask for more time. I did bring some screenshots of the stuff that Smotty's been going through, which has been some kind of racially motivated attacks on our home. I'll pass these out. I didn't,
And just so people know, that's information that will be incorporated into the packet for the meeting on March 7th.
okay,
officially.
I haven't submitted these, other than to Mandy.
No, that's
Oh,
what
you
I'm
got it,
talking
the
about.
Arab
Yeah. And
Pride
there's
and-
all of that. Plus we have the communication from other council, plus we have the communication from Mr. Peterson and the community council that are all going to be in separate AIMs, memoranda that are going to incorporate all of this into the record.
Okay.
So the purpose of today probably is not to go too deep into those items, but really to have a problem solving conversation about where do we go from here?
Yeah, so I think our fix is this newer and better equipment, which Ron can talk to better than I. I did bring plan sets, but not sure if you want that right now or later, but we've been told July 31st, we should have the system installed and fixed. And we have been trying to work our best with Kenny. He's been sending emails. We've been going out and trying to address the smell and check in on it. There's a desire for us to relay to him when harvests are. The problem right now, the building's like 95 degrees. And so when you're growing these plants, it's a cycle, right? And so you don't want to harvest the plants after the plants have died, because then there can be mold in the bud and different issues. So they're kind of having to make game time decisions of when to take down plants. Like if a plant looks like it's not going to survive the night, they're chopping it down, they're harvesting it early, which makes it difficult to give Kenny a really good schedule, because I think, and I don't want to speak for Kenny, but I think if I was in his position, I'd kind of want to know when to expect this, expect a smell that's kind of uncontrollable right now. So that's what we're kind of wrestling with. We're doing our best with that, but the building is like 90 degrees, right? 90, maybe a little bit more. It's hot. And obviously we don't want to just open the doors and let the cool air in, because that would exasperate the issue. So that's where we're at. They're ordering the equipment with or without insurance money. So they're just pulling it out of, Smotty's just pulling it out of her own personal resources and taking loans because the insurance money hasn't come in yet from the damage. So that's where we're at. We're committed to get it done by July 31st. I just would pray for a little leniency because Alaska's just hard. It's hard to get equipment.
Ms. Branca?
So I'm just wondering why it's not ordered. You say we're ordering it soon.
Yeah.
This is a big issue,
It's a
and
big
I would
issue.
like to hear it's ordered.
So Smotty did do an initial order of equipment, and then Ron looked at what she was put in as for an order, and he was like, this isn't going to fix the problem. So we had to pull it back, and Ron had to re-engineer it. And that just got done, I think, last week or
Come on up. No, if you're going to speak, come on up, Mr. Thompson. We got a microphone.
yesterday?
No, this is Ron Thompson, engineer.
Can you hit the button? That one, yeah.
My name's Ron Thompson, the mechanical engineer looking at the system. Obviously, damage was done, and we're trying to work back and forth with the suppliers. And the problem has been is trying to find certain equipment. Certain equipment, when we pick one, then all of a sudden it's not available. And so we're going back and forth right now, working with the insurance adjuster, the mechanical sales, which is the provider of the equipment, and what's available. So she's got her people all over the country trying to find equipment. And as we find it, they're putting the quotes together, finalizing that, and locking that up so we can get it here. And so we're trying to find equipment that's already built, that's available somewhere. But it is a pressurization issue. And I was there as late as yesterday, walking through, working on the pressurization. We did get the building negative. So the building is sitting negative right now, which means that the air's sucking in, which is good. But we need to add, because of the way that we did that, we got to get some filters. And so we're trying to procure those extra filters and get them in here as fast as possible. So there's kind of I would say there's the long range of getting everything final, but there's a short range we're working on too, to try to solve it, short range and long range. So just hopefully that makes sense in simple terms, but it is a pressurization issue. And I believe we found the issue, we know what's going on, and we can solve it.
So I think the summation of that is we're mitigating in the short term to the best possible extent because we're trying not to cause harm to neighbors. But there's a long-term fix. And Ron, are you comfortable saying July 31st, or would you agree with me that July 31st is ideal, but?
The construction industry is so crazy, and right now with all the damage in Florida, all the damage in North Carolina, all the damage in California, equipment is just absolutely going. Lead times are changing daily. And so I mean, I think ideally we're going to shoot for that. And I think we're ahead of the curve right now of knowing what equipment we need. And I think we should, but I mean, as I deal with a lot of construction and I deal with a lot of permitting, and I probably permit 60-70% of everything here in Anchorage, and I haven't seen many right now completing on time. I mean, almost nothing is completed on time. So I'm just being brutally honest that it is a tough industry right now. It's tough getting things done, but in this case, we're going to do our best to get everything secured and everything in town as fast as possible. And both, that's why I suggested a fairly extensive mitigation up front for now, and then the final solution. And I think that the mitigation piece will solve a pretty almost all of this problem anyway, but we do have to change and do something for the long term as well.
I don't know, this is probably ignorant on my part, but I don't know if air purifiers for the homes that are feeling disturbed by this. I mean, personally, I know some people like the smell. I toured a marijuana operation and they had a scent thing and they were like, oh, you love this. I'm like, it makes me want to vomit. So if it's really affecting certain neighbors, is there possible that there's air purification units that you could provide to them before you are able to finish up on getting your equipment fixed?
I mean, I would just say as a mechanical engineer, we can engineer solutions for cleaning air. What you're talking about sounds like a smoke eater, like they used to do at bars. Typically, do they still have those? Yeah, that's kind of the technology we use in the marijuana industry, which is carbon filters. So it's basically carbonized filters. They take the smells out of the air and transfer it. To put that into a house, usually that's not too difficult if the drywall isn't up on the house, but it's very difficult to do that in every space of the house when the drywall is up and trying to put ducts throughout. I mean, it's what we do in a house now that has in-floor heat. We put air-to-air heat exchangers in. They just come without carbon filters. What you're talking about is carbon filter stuff. So, mitigation is not great, but right, the most mitigation is keep the windows closed during those periods of time. But there is the ability to buy smoke eater type equipment that can alleviate odors. That's what they're for, odors and smoke. The carbon interacts with the smell, and that's what pulls the smell out of the air. So,
Mr. Littlefield?
Thank you for the explanation, Ron. I know the problems you guys are having with, finding materials. However, we keep hearing July 31st. Between now and March 7th, are we going to have a concrete date when we're going to figure out when this is going to be fixed? That gives you some time to figure out where you're going to engineering go and where the possibility of the equipment's going to get here. So I'm a little concerned about the July 31st date. You're not firm with it, and neither you. So I just wonder if we have any idea between now and March 7th.
I believe we should know of the equipment availability, and I would be shocked if we haven't made a purchase by March 7th. Now, then when you make the purchase, we could have the estimated arrival dates and the estimated amount of time to install items. So I think March 7th gives us an idea that we could be a little bit more accurate as to the possibility of availability of equipment, available of contractor install dates, and making sure that, and I can feed that through Jana and make sure that she has that. We had a good meeting with the adjuster yesterday. So we're all on the same page and we're all moving forward pretty quick. I promised them a design by today. So based upon all the decisions that were made for that yesterday. So I believe that with that, we should be able to then start sourcing equipment and making selections and having more firm dates. So hopefully that helps.
Thanks. Mr. Myers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Former member Cross texted me and had a question, so I said I would give him the credit since I don't partake in this. But he has a friend that has a huge amount of weed that they grow in a crawl space, and what they would do is install garage exhaust fans to push the smell into the sewer clean out. He said you couldn't smell it at all unless you were in there. So would that be a temporary solution until you can get this done?
Into the sewer, you said?
Sewer clean out is what he said.
In the sewer clean out,
Push
which
the smell
means that
down the
he's
sewer
putting it
clean
into
out.
the vent system of the plumbing, and that's not a solution. No, it wouldn't be allowed. But what we do
It
is
would get rid of the smell.
what we do
essentially.
is very similar. What we do is similar to that. It's just not. It's we put it into a duct that goes to the outside through a carbon filter system. That's what we're doing. That's what we're mitigating. And so, in fact, the answer is basically yes, just not through it's a ventilation duct rather than a sewer cleanout. That's all.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. So I have myself in the queue, and I'll say that I am a fan of the smell, but not in high volume and not in my home in any duration. So I will stand there, but there is some irony in the idea of pumping the smell into the sewer system, because it for some people it feels like that it's just pervading their home, right? That is the rub of this whole conversation. Now, I see there are two kind of conversations happening right now. One is about short-term mitigation and one is about long-term solutions. And I think that both of those have to be part of this. So I'm glad to hear that conversation is at least happening. I've heard conversations about short-term mitigation, including notifying neighbors when smell might happen because of a harvest. And I've heard something about coming up with short-term air solutions, air management solutions, the negative pressure. I think that's what we need. The question I have is, I recognize it's not in a business interest to reduce production, but if the system can't handle the volume of production, has the operator contemplated reducing or looking at what would the reduced production be that the system could maintain so that we don't have an ongoing odor problem for the next 6 months, right? That's like, to me, one thing we haven't heard.
So I could correspond. She has substantially reduced production.
Okay.
Right now, she's trying to keep her staff employed because if she loses her staff, she will not get them back.
Understood.
I mean, they'll go get other jobs. I mean, there's a huge industry shortage of jobs right now, especially growers. But she has substantially reduced, I mean, you could see that with her tax liability.
Yep.
It's
Okay.
gone down.
Yeah, and I don't
her
love
state
that
tax
for the
liability.
business, but I think the neighbors need that.
But that's what, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what she's doing. And also because of the temperature, I mean, you can't even, the,
So I would like to ask for a email to the clerk, and for everybody, I want all communications to come through the clerk at this point on this proceeding. It's just better not to send to members, shares, anybody, just the clerk. The clerk will distribute the process so that everybody has everything that needs to be communicated. And that's, in this case, Mandy, honest. And so kind of a brief report on mitigation, strategies and efforts that are ongoing for now until whatever end point in time we have this conversation. And so that would be a very helpful document to have so that people can see that and know that things are happening in context. So I think I would ask for that. So
yeah, we can do that, absolutely.
other members, questions? Nope. Okay, so I think if briefly, if we'll look at the resolution, which is the one that's labeled AR 2025-24, I just want to lay out the options that are there right now that are written in the document so people understand the conversations that are happening. You know, there are a number of check boxes on page 2, which center the bottom of page 2 and the top of page 3 that talk about after our review, the decisions that we can make. And so I don't want to get into the details of any of these, but members can take an opportunity to look through that. And then that's section 3. Section 4 it is the section that's the action section. The assembly denies or approves, affirms its protest, lifts its protest. There's also a checkbox by amendment. And then there are 2 boxes below. Expires 6 months from the date of the approval of this resolution and expires at the end of the standard licensing period. And so these are the options that are kind of on the table right now in a general way, which I think provides a little bit more margin if the 6-month option were selected than the July 31st date. And so I think that that concern can be mitigated. It would add an additional 2 months, 60 days on top of that time period if the 6-month option were to be selected. So those are the options that we have right now. The assembly is a legislative creature and does what it wants, so it's hard to say exactly what will come out of this. I've asked council to draft, it's not yet in a draft format, an amendment to this resolution that would select a path. And so that may be circulated at some point in the not too distant future. But before we get to that, there is a discussion we need to have about the proceeding. Mr. Gates would note, and I think I just said it, these are not the only options. Like I said, the assembly is a creature unto itself, and by amendment, it could do any number of things. And so y'all have your thinking caps on if you have alternative solutions. This is just based on the previous action that has come before us before. And so you are not limited to what's here. But as I said, I probably will be moving with Mr. Martinez, some kind of an amendment that would kind of address the considerations that we think are germane after this hearing and as we consider all the information, but still subject to the hearing that we will have once we get to the item on March the 7th. And so that's kind of process wise. Now, the previous process, I don't know that we took up 3 hours, but I think we set a 3-hour clock. We allowed the licensing official to make the case, like in a planning process, we would have a staff report. That's effectively what is the tradition. And then we would hear from the petitioner who would be able to make their arguments. And we haven't set the timeframes, how much time will be allotted. I think it's probably 10 minutes. And so with some time for rebuttal, we will also allow probably 5 minutes for the community council, 5 minutes for Mr. Peterson. And then once we have all of that information, plus all of the memorandums that are going to be drafted relative to all the communications we have, so the record is all complete before us, then the assembly will take on the action of what to do here. So that's the process as we have it developed. Now, what we have intended to do, I wish we would have had it today, but there's too many moving parts. 10 business days before March 7th, we will communicate the process, the procedure we intend to work through. so that everybody has the same information as we walk into the hearing. So there should be 10 business days for people to make preparations for any comments, any concerns, any additional records that they want to bring into it. And I have a question for council really quick. Thank you. My attorneys tell me, don't do that, so I'm not doing that. So the process will come to you with 10 business days notice at least, where you will have an understanding of the process we're going to go through to get through this conversation. So I think that in some kind of captures the conversation about the license. Separately, again, I want to walk through this policy we're developing right now. So, but before we completely pivot, are there any inputs you want to add? Go ahead, Ms. Wiltse.
I just have a question. Before we were talking about February, but I just want to confirm it's March 7th.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it was
And that's-
February 18, but then we
that's
moved
okay.
it to March 7th because half the body was
Yeah.
gone in February.
That works great.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah.
it. Oh, and I mean, when you talk about everything through Mandy, which we've been doing for assembly, but we haven't been doing that with our personal
That
communications.
doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, no, so we have no business
Okay,
between
yeah.
you and the neighbors, the community council, unless the neighbors want to present it or you want to present it or
Okay.
the council wants to present it. So, yeah, no. Any communication that is intended for the process going forward on the 7th that you want assembly members to contemplate should come through the clerk.
Got it.
Just for the ex parte rule, we don't have sidebar conversations outside of this convened meeting. Even, this is not ex parte, it's a noticed meeting, but it's a short panel, if you will, of the body, even though it is a majority of the assembly at this time. It is not the assembly, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important that we keep these records as clean as possible on these records and in that open meeting, take it all up. So all communications through Mandy is the best procedure at this time. You can CC council in those communications. They are always involved in these conversations. It never hurts, but they're going to get it from Mandy anyways.
Right.
And so that is the point of contact that keeps the lines clear.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so if there are no further questions on this kind of very specific part of the proceeding, I want to now turn to this draft marijuana odor policy. Heretofore, our friends in the Anchorage Police Department have not participated in the code enforcement process of odor inspection because really they have better things to do with their time. It's not desirable to have those folks who are out there to provide for the public safety, be working on public nuisance matters. And so that said, it's become apparent that our state and the municipal odor enforcement process is just one big loophole that you can drive an 18-wheeler through. And so what we have done is established a draft policy that is being kind of shopped around right now within the various parties. So it just can't be called the final proceeding. But I think if I'm not wrong, Mr. Gates, I would say that this is generally the policy, right? It might change on the margins, but this is generally the policy.
Yes, the protocol part is pretty much based on what they do now at the present with the investigative odor issues.
So really, nothing is new here, generally.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. We're not creating new policy. We don't need a resolution. There's no need to amend the code. So it's not a long read. It's kind of pithy. I think the last third of it is just restatement of the relevant codes. So even that you don't have to spend too much time on, but it's highlighted. And I think this item is posted up on the website. Mandy, the clerk acknowledges that this document is public and on the website, so anyone can download it and review it if they want. And again, it's not final. I anticipate it will be final within the next week or so, and everyone will be notified when it's final, so everybody has the same information. And if there are concerns, I think that in general, not in specific to a license, in general, they can be communicated to the clerk. And so That's first what I would say. Second, I would say that we are establishing a process by which any code enforcement authorized entity within the municipality can participate in odor management. So that could be the police department because they're sworn officers. That could be code enforcement. That could be the health department's code officers. That could be the community service officers of Anchorage Police Department. So anybody who has that designation as an officer of the municipality, they will be essentially witnesses. What is the real intent here is that if we have a location that has had a history of odor complaints, I have to be really careful with my terms here because violation means a complaint that has been validated, but complaints that if we have enough of them, it triggers APD's attention. And so that is when their attention is triggered, then they will begin engaging in the odor management process once that trigger is hit. And so if that happens, then they will be subject to many of, if not all of them, but many of the rules that code enforcement has heretofore operated. We have established a practice of having at least 2 officers witness the odor. So it can't just be one person. But the intent really is APD is driving around the streets all the time, every day. They are on the road. It is not a complaint is heard and then 3 days later, an officer is sent out to validate a smell. It's just real time. I guess that's what the difference is. This makes it real time as opposed to filtered. So I don't want to go line by line through this document because it's a lot. But I want people to take time to read through it, provide us input, and probably by next Thursday, we will move toward a final document. Once that document is published as final, then everyone can know that we are working on that. There is one area of discussion for the committee. Since you're here, maybe we'll let counsel for the licensee talk on this issue, but it's probably better to do it in writing with contemplation. The one area that we haven't finalized in this that I think needs some input is, I know it's in here somewhere. It's what actually triggers this process. The number of complaints, the number of violations, et cetera. Dean, where is that section? I can't seem to find it right now. Okay, in the definition. So
Page 4. I think. Switch.
there we go. So this area, I think, is one that we really need to have a conversation about. So if it's not today, that's fine. It would be then by email to the team if you have any inputs. But this is the one area that I feel like it needs to be workshopped. Any thoughts? If you read it, it says serial marijuana establishment odor source or serial odor violator and variants of these mean a licensed marijuana establishment that has 6 logged complaints in the last year, 18 in the past 3 years. And in parentheses, it's been taken out, or a substantial number of complaints logged in the past 3 years, at least 2 citations or notices of violation issued and upheld or paid without challenge in the past 10 years. I don't love looking 10 years. And so that just seems like an awful long time to me. And so, Jenna, Ms. Weltzine.
If I may.
Okay, Mr. Gates.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a draft form, so there were 2 alternatives there. One that you read out was, I guess, initial, and one were recent years, where it's had 6 complaints logged in the last year, or 18 in the past 3 years. So we're still sort of playing with what should be in this definition, and I think that's part of the discussion you wanted to have today. How should we define it? We have 2 alternatives that are sort of very different.
Right. And so that's, I looked at that 10 years in the drafting process and I said, that doesn't make sense to me. So Ms. Weltzine.
Well, I find this whole document very well put together. One, I find that section that you're referring to problematic because 6 complaints could be one person making 6 complaints. It also could be competitors
Right.
making complaints, which given what's been going on to her
Mhm.
with the racial, like spray painting of her cars and the vandalism. I feel like it puts her business particularly at risk, but really all the businesses particularly at risk for anybody that wants to cause problems. So I don't like the idea of just the complaints. I like the idea of the validating. It's real difficult though for these marijuana shops when there's a police car out front.
To do business.
It gives it a real bad look for business.
Yep.
I think it was, and I don't quote me on this, but I feel like it was Member Dunbar when he was on the body. He made a motion, which I don't think got adopted, to not have cops in gear when they went to facilities. That might not be realistic here, but maybe there could be just an understanding. Maybe they could park in the back because it just looks real hard for, it's
Okay,
just hard for
so
business.
rather than make the sausage on the dais, I think I've given a week for input. I think we would welcome some communication in writing relating to the policy, not the licensee,
Right.
right? This is just a different issue, like,
So would you, okay, I will do written public comment on this. I wonder if you would want it from other people in the industry who probably aren't aware of this.
so we just published the document and it is now public. And so it is not going to be a resolution or a memorandum, so there's no vote. And we're working to streamline this policy. And so now would be the time, about a
Okay.
week.
Thursday of next week.
It's a moving target. What we want to do is provide the licensees who may fall into this category ample notice so they understand what's coming.
I would just say next week is marijuana control board. So for the industry, this is not ample notice.
So, but again, I think if you look at the list of violations, there aren't many who fall into this. And bottom line on the back end is if the operator is operating within the law, none of this policy matters, right?
Well, I actually don't think we know about who this applies to because we don't have lists of the complaints. We know verified NOVs, right? But the complaints, I mean, there's a lot of facilities that had complaints that weren't verified. So this could impact a lot. And I'm just saying, next week is marijuana control board week, so it's going to be difficult for the industry to mobilize by then, but we can do our best.
So a rational argument could be made. It probably should be made in writing if a little bit more time is needed. So, but that's what I would offer, is there is some opportunity here to help shape this policy.
Thank you.
I don't know that I would, the problem with not being on this side or that side of the building, of course, is part of the code enforcement process is which way is the wind blowing?
Right.
You know, and so you have to be on the side, the leeward side of the wind, where the wind is blowing at you, right? And so I think there's a challenge with the argument of, don't have an officer, but maybe parking is an issue we can talk about. And I think that some discretion, Mr. Gates, could be built in about, irrational threats from competitors. I don't know how we'll sort that out, but I think it's wise to put some thought into that and share with us so we can contemplate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I will, but I would just say the only way to get away from that is validate some sort of complaint, have a validation process of the complaint, not just 6 complaints were made, maybe by one person, maybe by somebody paid. I mean,
Well, and again, on the back end, the issue is if there is a smell and 2 officers are there, it is validated.
right,
And
but this
so-
is complaints.
No, I understand that. And that this is what gets them on the table, right? This opens the door to that other process. And so I think we have to be careful of setting up too high barriers. Again, we have currently a system where it's, in my opinion, proven that the odor violation process is not effective. It's almost impossible. Mr. Gates.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to make sure if I'm understanding, one thing that the industry and Ms. Watson's pointing out is it's important for, there's serial, I guess, oversource supply, that there have been at least some due process through a notice of violation that's been upheld through hearing maybe the administrative hearing officer before this could actually be something that applies to any business. And I think that's important, and thank you for sharing that. That's what I understood you to say, right? Not merely complaints, but at least one component of this is that there's been some citation or held up in an actual procedure.
And I don't know that I'll agree with that, but I want to hear your input.
Right.
We want to hear it and take it in and make the decision on the policy based on our best information with your information included. And so right? Because the due process comes when I believe there are actual odor violations. That's when we actually get to there is a violation that has been identified by a number of qualified officers. And so, but I hear your point. I hear your point. And what we don't want is every operation on this list, because then it becomes moot.
Well, and then you're gonna see more and more go out to the borough.
Yep.
It's kind of where this will lead. I mean, the market's so competitive right now, and there's been zero enforcement on intoxicating hemp, which I would love to see something like this, some kind of indoor correct, like, so you could stop kids getting intoxicating hemp. And if the cops are so interested in marijuana, it would be great if they got interested in intoxicating hemp and stop kids from getting it. But I understand that this is a use of their, I guess this is gonna be use of their time. The serial complaints, I think that needs due process. That is problematic.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. And you'll send your thoughts and we will take that under advisement. And to your point on the hemp, I believe finally there's been some movement with the state. And so,
It's been illegal.
no, I know that, but I believe on the practical side, there might be some movement.
And I
so-
I would love to sit down with the chief of police and explain how these intoxicating hemp products are scientifically exactly
Yeah.
the same and being fed to children.
I get it. And so that's a sidebar conversation, not on the agenda, but I will
But
say.
it's so important.
I will say that there is some movement on that topic that I'd be happy to share with you very soon. So, okay, other matters. I really do want members to read through this policy and think it through. If you have any thoughts, please provide input. I want that from the industry as well. And, you know, my intent was next week, but it sounds like there might be a confounding variable that might push it out a few more days. But with that, this is the gist, and it is yet unvetted until now, and so we are open to input.
Thank you.
All right, so do we have other matters or input for consideration today? Okay, I think we've kind of taken care of the business. To the members of the public, you will have an opportunity to speak, but it is the opinion of myself and council that it would be wise not to speak on the matter under advisement that will be heard at the meeting of March 7th. That I will note again that due to the way the communications have come to us, it makes sense that we'll hear from the community council and the named neighbor in the hearing itself when we get there. So you will have an opportunity to be heard, and you will receive a communication from the clerk's office that details how much time you will be allotted and what part of the process it will happen. And so the same to the petitioner, you will be delivered a document that says, this is our work plan for our hearing that will be held on March 7th. Intent is to do it in this room just because it's less pressure and less drama than being in the chamber. It can be a little more human and equal platform. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn to audience participation. If anyone here from the audience wishes to be heard, Mr. Peterson. Oh, timer. Go ahead, please state your name, what part of town you're from. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah, this is Kenneth Peterson from Midtown. And after 4 years, I wanted to say thank you. I felt alone for 4 years, and I no longer feel alone. Us working on it together, it matters a lot, and hopefully something will come from it. For 4 years, we've been experiencing this, and maybe something will come that will make a difference for it. So I just want to say thank you. I want to use my time for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Anyone else wish to be heard? All right, seeing and hearing none, then I think we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Everybody, thank you.